need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
My first question comes from Kristen, and Kristen writes from Oldsmar, Florida. She says, Betsy, I need help planning an open area with a diagonal wall, windows, and a sliding glass door. I want the space to function as a family room with a TV. Perhaps I'll add a fireplace, perhaps a formal dining area. Thank you in advance. All right, Kristen. So, the one thing I don't do on this podcast is give very specific floor plan advice because I have a method that I use for finding the perfect floor plan every time. Those of you listening who are in the academy know what I'm referring to. It's called my master layout system, and I never create a floor plan, whether it's for a client or myself, without doing my due diligence and completely going through the entire system. Because this is a podcast, I am not going to go through that whole system with you now because, it's not everybody's jam and it's a little bit technical. It is for the pros and not necessarily something you just want to hear somebody drone on and on about. That being said, there are going to be things that you need to be mindful of as you're designing this space. This is a very tricky space. And guys, I'm going to do my best to explain it to you, but the best way to envision Kristen's space is to go to our YouTube channel, Affordable Interior Design on YouTube. And not only subscribe, because as you remember from the last episode, I am in a heated competition with my son, Despicable Duck on YouTube. Then you can see her pictures, her floor plan, and it will help to illuminate the situation even better than I can describe it because, picture's worth 1,000 words and she has 2. So 2,000 words right there. Let me describe it briefly. So it is a very large open room with a beautiful wall of sliders on one side, kind of facing an L-shaped kitchen with an island. Then as you move counterclockwise around the space, you've got like this TV area, or at least in the rendering there's a TV, but it sounds like that could be open. Then right across from the TV area, you've got this wall that has this big black thing on it. And I'm going to assume that the big black thing, the big black trapezoid, is a fireplace holder. I'm not sure. Is that supposed to be a fireplace? The floor plan keeps it very open. But basically between the angled wall that has the black trapezoid / fireplace and between the straight wall, which has the TV, there is a walkway, which looks like a pretty major thoroughfare from the hallway to the rest of the house to the kitchen area. We have a number of challenges with this space, but the very first thing I want you to think about are walkways, because we don't want to obstruct major arteries in the house with clogging furniture, right? If I'm bringing these groceries in from the front door every day and going down that hallway, if I have to go around a sectional, if I have to make this huge detour past a coffee table, past a formal dining table, just to get to the island where I can finally drop my bags, I am exhausted and the room is not working. I'm going to share a solution that's a little bit off the wall, pun intended, but I do want you to do your due diligence. And the crux of the master layout system is that you try every possible option, keeping your mind completely open and locking in only once you've eliminated options. So it's basically, if you want to change the name of the game, the process of elimination method, right? We want to start with the things we know for sure, work our way around so that we can eliminate all the possibilities and land on the one that works. That way, when you're buying the furniture and putting it in the right places, you know with confidence, yes, this is the best place for this piece because X, Y, Z. I recommend, if you're going to have a dining table in here, that you would have it somewhat close to the kitchen area. That only makes sense. So I'm not carrying platters and dishes and blah, blah, blah everywhere. So that means it would go roughly in front of the slider, either parallel to the slider or perpendicular to the slider, which is directly opposite the kitchen and by the island. I think that makes total sense. I think it's going to work out really well. Now, if you want this to be a family room, then we need a lot of seating, right? Typically, we need to seat at least 4, maybe 6, and we need a TV, and you've told me you want a fireplace. When I hear that we need a lot of seating, I think sectional, because in a family room, you can be more casual. Sectionals are typically a more casual look, a loungy look, if you will. And I also want us all to be together. In other words, not being on separate little chair islands, but all together on the sectional without having to touch, right? I want my elbow room, but I also want to reach over and snuggle you if I want to. The sectional is great for that. But the problem is that we only have one or potentially two with the angled walls, usable walls in here that are not broken up with kitchen cabinets, windows, or the sliding door, right? Ideally, we wouldn't occupy both walls, one with a TV and one with the fireplace, with two focal points that are opposite each other. So there's no ideal seating placement where I can look at both at the same time, which is ideal, right? You don't want to be turning back and forth, nor do I want to have my back to one of the focal points, be it the fireplace or the TV, of course. I'm going to throw out a crazy suggestion. The large unbroken wall that currently has the TV in the rendering, I think could be a very interesting spot to put a sectional. And then have the shorter arm, or maybe it's an equidistant arm of that sectional, parallel to the island in the kitchen. I think that could be a really interesting flow that then faces the angled wall that would house the fireplace and the TV. And you're saying, Betsy, the TV is on an angle. How am I going to see it on the sectional? I would recommend doing a swivel mount. That way you can swivel it to the sectional. Now, there are a number of ways to create this floor plan, and that is only my first impression, which I never go with. I always exhaust all options. But you're asking me for a quick thought, and there's not going to be many options in this very challenging room with walkways, with doorways, with kitchen, with dining room. We have a lot of limitations. So, you doing your own due diligence certainly would not come amiss. But I also think the way that I've devised this plan could really work and would keep it nice and open and play to the room's strengths without making the space feel awkward. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy, who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller, who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.